Man, it is a big day in college football. There's so many storylines and big time matchups to watch. Today, I wanted to break down the biggest matchups and the NFL draft prospects to watch. Let's go ahead and get right into it. There is college football going on right now. Ohio State, Kansas, Florida, they're all playing. But the biggest games of the day and what I consider must see TV doesn't start until this afternoon and this evening. So let me go ahead and get started with my 5 must-watch games of the day. Starting off at 3:30 Eastern, it's USC taking on Michigan in the first of its kind Big 10 matchup. This one promises fireworks as USC's Miller Moss makes his first career start on the road against the defending national champion Michigan Wolverines. Michigan has gotten off to a slow start without Jim Harbaugh, and they will be turning to a new quarterback in this one. Alex Orji will get the start. But USC has some players I really like. Potentially the best center in the nation, Jonah Monheim. Caleb Williams is a big fan of this guy, but USC also has stud defensive tackle Bear Alexander, no better name in the draft. But Michigan is also loaded with talent on the defensive line. Both Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant should go high in the draft, but they also have talented pass rushers, a talented secondary, and a star running back in Donovan Edwards. USC also has star receiver Zachariah Branch, but he is not eligible for next year's draft. He is an exciting player to keep an eye on, though, for sure. Next up, we have a matchup of two teams ranked in the top 15 as Utah will be taking on Oklahoma State. This one starts at 4 o'clock Eastern. If you like high-scoring games, this is going to be the one to watch as both teams average over 40 points per game on the year. Keep an eye out on Oklahoma's stud running back, Ollie Gordon, if you watch this one. Meanwhile, Utah quarterback Cam Rising is coming back from injury, and this should be a big-time matchup and just a fun, high-scoring college football game. But then there are 3 big-time games I want to watch tonight. At 7 Eastern, we have Miami versus USF. This is an intriguing matchup as Cam Ward and the Hurricanes have looked like one of the best teams in the nation, but USF was able to put up a fight against Alabama a couple weeks ago, and now they have a home matchup against Alabama. This is a big test for Cam Ward and company on the road. And then something else to keep an eye on tonight. Arch Manning will be making his first career start as Texas takes on Louisiana Monroe at 8 Eastern. Arch is the next in line of the Manning name. He is the backup to Quinn Ewers this season, but Ewers is going to miss this start, giving Arch a chance to show the world his talents. He filled in for Ewers last week mid-game. He threw for 4 touchdowns and ran for a 5th. He's the real deal. But then we have another matchup of 2 teams ranked in the top 15 as Tennessee travels to take on Oklahoma. This one should have more defense, but also another big-time matchup. Tennessee has some really intriguing players to watch, but all eyes should be on edge rusher James Pierce Jr. in this one. He's one of the most talented pass rushers in the nation, a guy who has the upside to be the #1 pick in the draft next season. When Tennessee has the ball, keep an eye out for their guard, Javontes Spraggins. He is a mauler, and I would love to add that dude on day 2 next year. Oklahoma has a lot of draft-ready talent as well, featuring a couple of receivers to keep an eye on and a safety I really like, Billy Bowman Jr. This should be a fun matchup to close out the night. A couple other games to keep an eye on. Baylor is playing Colorado tonight. That'll be on Fox. Remember, Deion Sanders has 2 first-round caliber talents on that roster in Travis Hunter and Shadur Sanders. And I also love watching Penn State games because they have multiple edge rushers on their roster that I'm keeping an eye on. If you haven't watched Penn State yet, they'll be taking on Kent State today. They have bigger matchups coming up later this season, but their edge rushers could eat in this one. And then I want to go ahead and show you guys some early draft targets and players to watch all around college football. Now that the Bears roster is a lot more talented, we don't have as many holes. To me, this makes it easier to find what potential positions that Ryan Poles could attack on draft day. I think 2025 is all about the trenches, and we will be scouting accordingly. I will also scout the running back and safety class as well, and I always scout receivers. But after a few weeks of college football and a ton of work I've put in behind the scenes, here is an early look at players to watch at the Bears' positions of need. I've narrowed down my centers to 7 players I think Ryan Poles should be following closely. And the good news about the center position is we should be able to land one of these top players in round 2 or 3 next year. Keep an eye out for these guys: Parker Brailsford, Jonah Monheim, Seth McLaughlin, Bryce Foster, and Logan Jones are my top 5 centers for 2025. And then the guard position is stacked too. Tyler Booker, Tate Rutledge, and Donovan Jackson all bring first round upside to the table, and guards rarely get drafted in the first round. So I think next year's second and third round are just going to be packed with interior offensive line talent. Luckily for the Bears, we have 3 picks in rounds 2 and 3 next year. But then we look at the edge rushers, and this class is just loaded. While 2024 was stacked with wide receivers and offensive tackles, 2025 is loaded with talent in the trenches, even more so on the defensive side of the ball. James Pierce Jr., Nick Scourton, Michael Williams, Abdul Carter, and so many more. 2025 is looking like the year of the edge rusher. The ranks will change as the year goes on, but Ryan Poles should have his eyes on every player listed here. So much talent at defensive end. But the defensive tackle class is stacked too. A handful of these guys could go in the first round, and there is a lot of talent after the big names as well. I'm really high on Dante Corleone from Cincinnati, Bear Alexander from USC, and Oregon's Jordan Birch. Next year's defensive line class gives Ryan Poles the perfect opportunity to add another piece to our D line. But we also have 5 picks in the first 4 rounds next year. I expect at least 1 defensive lineman and 2 offensive linemen in our first 5 picks. But I also want to mention one more position to keep an eye on here: running back. Next year's class is just special. Ashton Genty, Ollie Gordon, Quinshawn Judkins, Donovan Edwards, Trevor Etienne. I'm not saying Ryan Poles will draft a running back, but I do think there's a scenario where Poles could upgrade the trenches and draft a very talented runner next year as well. These are my running backs to watch. I'm going to list those on the screen as well. I do have some more videos on the way, and I will be live for tomorrow's game, Bears versus Colts. I do expect the Bears to bounce back. Let me know if you guys are watching any college football today. I put a ton of work into these videos. Please hit that like button for me. Stay tuned, and until next time, bear down.